Yeah, I mean, I welcome the chaos. The rule of show business is if it's the first week of my album release and you are saying either my name or my album title, you're helping. Um, and art, I have a lot of respect for people's subjective opinions on art. I'm not the art police. It's like everybody is allowed to feel exactly how they want. And what our goal is as entertainers is to be a mirror.
Hey, besties. Blake Lively is about to get exposed in literally the biggest way. This is the thing. This is the thing that I have wanted to see since day one. This is the document that I wanted to get my hands in and sink them in because I wanted to know what was in her contract that she didn't sign when she signed on to not signing on to a movie to play Lily Bloom and It Ends With Us. The contract that for whatever reason she did not attach to her lawsuit when you are supposed to attach your employment agreement when you actually sue for employment discrimination. You need to actually prove you have a contract, and she did not do that. Why didn't she include the actor's loan out agreement when she sued? Why did she only include the writer that she did after the fact, which were the protections that return to work? Could there have been something in her actual loan out agreement, which she never signed, by the way, that would have placed her in a way that wouldn't be favorable before the court? I think so. Well, yesterday I broke down for you that the judge decided to unseal a recording of and a declaration related to whoever it is that claims that Justin Baldoni was verbally awful to them and not nice. And there's some sort of recording that was also unsealed. However, due to the way everything is set up in court, instead of files that are sealed being filed in the electronic system and available to the public, they are not. And instead, the parties exchange them behind the scenes. So Wayfair has to get it from them and they have to get it from Blake and Blake has to get it from them, you know? So now it's up to them to get it onto the docket so it becomes public. So thus far, we still don't know what's in the recording and who the declarant is a day later. It might get updated soon, but they recently changed it so that sealed documents are no longer filed and available on the public docket. And so they have to actually get onto the docket at some point. So instead of doing placeholders and instead of things being available on the docket, now we're going to find out eventually somehow whether Wayfair actually reattaches it or not. But Blake's contract is about to get exposed. Her employment contract. The judge said that they wanted a letter from either Blake or from them about why they should be continuing to seal these documents, whether it was her employment agreement, contract, or her CRD complaint. Thus far, Blake has not sent a letter to the judge demanding that these will be sealed. And because Wayfair is a party to the contract and they're the ones that filed them, they sent a letter to the judge today and said they want to withdraw their request to seal Blake's loan out agreement. Okay, you guys, this is serious. You guys, I can't even tell you. I'm smiling. Someone in my comments said I can tell you when you're smiling, Katie. Okay. So, what does a standard actors agreement include? The typical contents of a standard actor agreement would normally include what the base salary is, which is a fixed sum per project or per episode, bonuses, or box office participation, which is a share of the profits, back end points, or producer credits. So, if you recall, some of those emails that we saw that were getting under seal had to do with them talking about the with lawyers, consulting the lawyers about the box office bonus for the actors and when they were going to distribute them. Okay. Perks are also would be included, which would include first class travel, trailers, glam teams, assistants, really like what they're going to give to the actor or actress to keep them happy while they're on the set. Other aspects would be a credit placement. So, what is how's her name going to appear on the title and for the billing? So is it Blake Lively starring It Ends With Us? Blake Lively producer, that's what the credit placement is. What her guaranteed marketing commitments are, so how many interviews she needs to do, how many press days or social media posts she needs to make. So what we will learn is what she actually was paid, which is different than what has been publicly implied. So publicly, the implication or the suspicion has been 3 million. We have no idea if that's true or not. It's just been what has been suspected. Whether or not she had creative control or producer status, which would make it very hard for her to claim that she had no authority, and the timeline of the signing, which would be useful for proving when she became attached versus when Wayfair started and developed the project. There would also be issues that will come up in there about creative control and approval rights. So, common aspects in a contract will include if script revisions are allowed, or if she has to get final script approval, if she has to get director or co star approval, if she has any sort of say in the final cut consultation. This is rare. And according to Wayfair, she did not have this in her contract. Also, what kind of wardrobe, hair, and makeup approval she would need, if she would need to get approval for any of her photos or trailer approval. And if that part of it gets unsealed, it will show whether or not she was a decision maker that had control over the project, meaning her actions and misrepresentations are relevant to the legal issues. So if she has more control and more power than she's leading on to the court, it's going to be hard for her to claim that she was just this like minor employee that had no rights. Okay. She likely had a contract because she was signed as an executive producer that included an acting memo and an executive producer agreement. And the executive producer agreement would spell out what her obligations were to the film, if any, to be an executive producer. So if she had responsibilities to participate in pre-production press, or if she was, had responsibilities when it came to managing the budget, because that's what a executive director is or executive producer is they're the ones that manage the financing side. They're the ones that come to the table with money. And so if she's an executive producer and it's her job to manage the budget, that puts her in a position of authority. Okay. Then you have moral and conduct clauses. And this is where we're going to get into this. So, standard studio contracts will allow them to terminate if an actor's conduct brings the project into disrepute, if the actor breaches confidentiality or leaks internal materials, or there's false or defamatory public behavior. Unsealing the contract will show if she had a clause in her contract that barred her from speaking negatively about Wayfair. And if she had that in her clause and she was having leaks sent out through Leslie Sloan about, Justin being abusive and trying to paint the film as like toxic and, putting the film set and harming the publicity, harming what happened with this film. If she is bound by an NDA as well, that is not going to be in her benefit, because if it goes both ways, right? She says that they were not supposed to retaliate, but if she has an NDA and she behaved badly and she said things that were defamatory, that might come back to bite her in the butt. And so what the morality clause would look like, the typical language would be the artist shall not commit any act or become involved in any situation or occurrence that brings artist into public disrepute, contempt, scandal, or ridicule, or which reflects unfavorably upon the picture, producer, or any affiliated company. Or another clause would be any act by or statement by the artist that materially impairs the commercial value of the picture or the good name of the producer shall constitute grounds for termination. Her behavior and how she behaved on the press tour was a huge problem for them and caused a lot of backlash on for the film. So if Wayfair documents examples of prohibited behavior, such as if she disparaged the producers to any of the cast, if she publicly attacked them, if she spread misleading information about them to get people to unfollow, if she leaked emails, or if she like used the press to distort what happened on the set so it looks favorable to her, that could be a breach of the morality clause. And it could show that she contractually agreed not to misrepresent the production, defame any of the others involved, or create negative publicity. So if Wayfair has a defense, they can argue that she weaponized media links, she misled the public about evidence, and she damaged the film's value. That's a big one. I can't wait to see it. Okay, the next one that will be in there is confidentiality and publicity restrictions. Okay, so the confidentiality and publicity restrictions would be a typical confidentiality language would be the artist shall not disclose, publish, or cause to be disseminated any confidential information relating to the picture, the producer, or any of their employees, contractors, or affiliates. This would include scripts, casting details and production schedules, emails, texts, or contracts, internal disputes, settlements, or investigations, and any information about coworkers' conducts or behavior. So if she has a non-disparagement clause in there that she is not supposed to disparage Wayfair or, Justin or anyone, and then she ran around and did that and turned people against him, she could be in violation of her non-disparagement and confidentiality. And typically, it's the artist agrees not to make any public statements, whether true or false, that could reasonably be construed as disparaging or detrimental to the producer, director, or any other artist. So if she leaked information about what happened on the set, which she did via Leslie Sloan, this could impact her waiving her confidentiality by putting certain details into the public. And if she engaged in unauthorized PR activity, like launching parallel, doing one of the big things was she was promoting her alcohol, which is part of the reason why she got so much backlash. If she was putting out a misleading narrative that directly impacted it and was in violation of that, that would be not good for her. So we're going to see what's actually in that aspect of the contract. And I promise you, every contract has one. I worked on a documentary for 2+ years with Netflix. I had a contract with a production company, which included that I could not disparage anyone involved in the series. I could not talk about the series until it came out and was announced, meaning y'all didn't know I was working on it for 2 years. And then once it came out, what I was required to do and what I couldn't say about anyone else. And there was a standard NDA in there that included not disparaging anyone. None of the producers, none of the directors, the cast, no one. That's a pretty big one, and it's very standard. So the other clause that might be exposed would be their termination and remedies clause. And this is how the production can respond if the actor breaches parts of their contract. So a typical termination clause would allow immediate action if she fails to render services like skips filming or refuses press. And remember, she refused to sign it probably because if she did, she kept saying she wasn't going to do press. Well, if she would have signed her termination clause, if she would have signed her contract, right? They could fire her. It'll also she could be terminated if she breaches confidentiality, morality, or cooperation clauses, engages in misconduct that's harmful to the picture, becomes involved in legal disputes that impair marketability, which she's done, and if the actor is convicted or accused of conduct that could harm the reputation. High value deals, terminations can either be for cause, which means no further payments and possibly repayment of prior sums, or without cause, pay or play. They still get paid, but the contract ends. This means if she's found in violation, it could have a provision which is a clawback. So, say she was behaving in a way that was bad on the publicity tour. If they wanted to enforce the contract, they could try to claw back the fees that they paid her for bonuses. They could sue her for reimbursement of damages or legal costs. If they are moving to unseal, it means they have nothing to hide. Okay. And what it tells me is they might be trying to prove that she breached some part of her clause, whether it's the morality or the confidentiality provisions, which would help their defenses. It could also expose the timing conflicts. It can poke holes in whether or not she really had a final cut and if she had rights to edit, which she got. It might also show whether she had good faith obligations to cooperate in publicity or refrain from interfering with distribution. So What this really proves and hopes to do, I'm assuming, is that it's gonna show that she did have some level of authority, that she had a title, whether it was executive producer or producer, which gave her a level of authority on the film set. And if you know anything about film sets, the PGA producer is above the director. And if you know anything about film sets, the PGA producer is the boss of the director. Blake Lively's credit is PGA. She asked for the PGA credit, she received the PGA credit, and the PGA is the boss of the director. They're the top, and she would be the colleague and co-lead with Jamie Heath. She's not a subordinate. If she cannot prove that she was simply an employee but was rather an equal, it's gonna be hard for her to win this. And I think one of the biggest parts that's gonna be really damning is whether or not there's this morality or confidentiality clause, because a lot has been said about Wayfarer disparaging her, but if she also has a non-disparagement agreement and she was behaving that way, they had a right then that would almost justify them hiring crisis PR because they were concerned about her damaging the film and breaching her contract. If she had obligations to cooperate in production and refrain from disparagement, and she didn't do those things, Wayfair can argue and say, she is suing us under FEHA for emotional distress, but her distress resulted from her own contractual breach, not our conduct. She breached her terms of the employment. She behaved in a way that was a violation of our contract, and everything that's seen since is her fault. And she was not our employee. She was a PGA producer. I just wanna see about the morality, and I wanna see about the payment, and I wanna see about what the non-disparagement looks like, because those 3 pieces could destroy her case, and I am here for it. Ellen Garofalo, please upload a copy of the contract now onto the docket so I can read it. Thank you. Tell me what your thoughts are. Are you curious about this? I like this move because I think they have nothing to hide. You're not going to have this released if you're trying to hide anything. But what do you think? Tell me in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel. Make sure to subscribe to my channel. Make sure to leave some comments below and tell me what your thoughts are. Bye, guys.